Jazz and the concert hall have always had an uneasy relationship, but people keep trying to bring them together. Wynton Marsalis does it now, but back in 1964, a composer named Gunther Schuller was doing it, and he wrote a Peter and the Wolf style piece exploring jazz, especially for this concert. And he conducts it too. In fact, this is quite a composer-dominated event. We get Aaron Copland playing his own version of jazz on the piano. Now, he turned up on the Young People's concerts quite a few times. He was already famous then. Today, he's probably the most renowned American composer, just as Leonard Bernstein is still the most famous American conductor ever, years after both their deaths. The trick about putting jazz and symphony musicians together, which Bernstein does in this concert, is that they follow two very different traditions. Also, symphony musicians almost never have to improvise, and jazz musicians don't necessarily have to know how to read music in order to play. It's like me trying to sing opera. I don't know why, but that's what they wrote. These guys are obviously brave, and they don't mind trying each other's style. And it's a little easier when you get a composer who takes the jazz influence and writes it into the score. Then the players just have to know how to swing.
This is the story of Peter Parker, a boy who learned about jazz. When he was still quite small, Peter Parker had strong musical tastes. When his father sang, Peter moaned. And when his mother sang, Peter howled. By the time he was 5, Peter had his own toy trumpet. At 6, he was given a phonograph that was as small and sturdy as he. And at 7, a transistor radio was added to help satisfy Peter's huge hunger for music. One day, Peter taped a bold sign outside the door of his room, which said, "Music is being made. Do not enter." The door was then closed. And from that day on, the sign appeared and remained in place from 3 to 6 every afternoon. From behind the door, Peter's parents could hear the trumpet or the phonograph playing Prokofiev, or the radio playing Rossini, and usually all three at once. Of course, the trumpet was the loudest. Soon Peter had a real trumpet and a real teacher whose tastes in music were as strong as Peter's. Peter's parents began to hear scales. First simple scales that soared slowly and floated back down again, sometimes stumbling on the way. Then more and more difficult scales that climbed quickly and fell with dizzying speed, and soaring arpeggios. From exercises, Peter went on to play real tunes, tunes that sometimes sounded like a small stream in a great hurry, or sometimes like a deep and peaceful river, or an electric storm, or something like nothing Peter's parents could imagine at all. Peter told his parents that these very advanced tunes were called modern music. They nodded, but were not quite sure they understood. Soon, Peter and his teacher began to play duets. Gradually, it became difficult to tell Peter apart from his teacher. And by the time he was 14, Peter was a most accomplished and exceedingly proud trumpet player. There was no music printed that he couldn't read.